Welcome, everybody, to another glorious episode of Cash Flow Positive. And we have a great one today. I am sitting with an investor who has been killing it across multiple markets around the country. In fact, he's helped some of our clients, and he is one of the top innovators that I know of in the space. Very creative guy. He's going to break it all down in this episode today for you on how you can innovate, what it means for him and sharing his experiences and his stories of scaling as well. Very powerful episode we have prepared today for you guys. So, without further ado, Juliano, welcome to the show. Tell us more about yourself.
Hi guys, my name is Juliano Silva. I am actually in California, but my properties are all over the place. I have properties in Minnesota, Florida, North Carolina. So I've been in the real estate game for a little over, I want to say, 10 years. I started off as a long-term rental investor. Had a portfolio of that, and then over time we switched to short-term rental, which is a lot more fun, guys. Like no, no, no question. And then my wife and I we've been doing it. I've been doing it full time. So I quit my job. I was in tech. I was a web developer, front end. I did a lot of reacting. I worked for Target, and now I'm doing this full time. So today we have a portfolio of short-term rentals, and we also help clients and people, get off the ground with data and really understanding how to make money with their first properties.
Nice. When did you get your first short term rental?
So yeah, that's a good question. In fact, I just wrote that in my newsletter, my first newsletter about a
Nice.
story. So our first short-term rental was actually a condo in Minneapolis. So my wife and I we used to live in Minnesota. Uh, I used to work for Target, as a front end developer designer, and we built design systems. And my wife was at the U of M, University of Minnesota, doing a PhD. So we bought a condo in downtown Minneapolis, and my wife came to me one day and said, "Hey, what if we just rented a bedroom?" And to me, it was the craziest idea because we lived in the condo, like it wasn't like a condo. And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" It's like we have this bedroom here. Let's test it out. So as you know, my wife is very very entrepreneurial, like I am. And I said, "Hey, it's a crazy idea, but if you're in, I'm in. Let's try it." So that was our first taste of like short-term rental. We
That's
rent
like true Airbnb at its core, right?
true.
Like
Yeah,
room sharing. Yeah. Or not room sharing, but like, like house sharing kind of thing.
yeah.
So
And that was in
cool.
2018-ish,
Okay.
2019-ish. In that one bedroom, the crazy thing, because I was afraid, like, hey, we're married, we're gonna have a stranger, she's coming in, and it's gonna be weird. But she was willing to test it out. I'm like, okay. And a couple things happened. People that would stay with us, we would barely see them. Like
Mm,
it would be uh someone going to college, the University of Minnesota, they leave early and come late. Or a businessman. Well, we had a lot of that, like businessmen. We had a couple coming to raise money for their startup, and they would leave early. Like we'd see them very, very sparingly, right? Not
yeah.
not not often. It was just like, wow, and they didn't make any mess. They didn't use the fridge, like it's like and that unit was making that one bedroom was making like 3 grand a month on average for 1 year. Our mortgage was like 22,
Wow. That's crazy.
and it was crazy. So we're like, wow. And then of course, as anything that's doing well, the HOA shut us down.
Oh man. Yeah, good old HOA.
Yeah, yeah. But I was like, we were reflecting about this because I just wrote in my first newsletter, like we were grateful because that actually happened to us when we were living in it, we were testing this out,
Hmm.
right? So that's when we started really diving in deep into like regulations and really understanding. And that happened like we didn't buy and then they shut us down. We didn't buy for short-term rental. We were testing it out. We
Right.
had that prototype, startup kind of mentality. So it was a great. And then from that, we had the bug, right? We liked it so much, and then we had about 15 long-term rentals. We had about 15 long-term rentals, and a long-term rental. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't as exciting as short-term rental, right?
Right.
in the groups that I was part of, I was part of a mastermind as well. And it was great. Learned a lot, especially like how to underwrite properties. I learned a lot. But the mentality, the mindset is just different, right?
Oh yeah.
Like landlords are willing to they're not willing to spend. Like they're looking to spend the less,
Mhm.
spend less and sometimes put the tenants at a very uncomfortable situation. Because I mean, in that defense, it's tough to make money in the long term rental, especially right now. I'm not seeing anything that it's not even close to making sense. And at the time, it was okay. It made sense. You still get like a cash on cash return of like 5-7%. It was great, right?
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
it was amazing. It was amazing.
Awesome. Yeah.
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 But we went through that, and if it wasn't for a long term rental, I don't think we would be doing short term rental, right?
Right.
So So then we decided we met someone in a group in a mastermind,
Okay.
and she's like, I've got a property in Florida that's making X amount of money. I'm like, what? No, no way. And I said to her, and I said, well, let's meet, have coffee. So she actually showed me her spreadsheet, and I think
Mm.
she was making 170 to 180 with a relatively simple property in Florida. I'm like, no, man. And it was my partner, today, and I we were together, and my wife talking to her is like, "Wow, this is interesting." But at the time, we were building a we were building a duplex in Palm Coast, like close to San Agustin, Florida.
Yeah.
And they're like, "We don't have the money." But then COVID hit,
Mm.
which was a blessing. So we were building this condo. I'm sorry, this duplex from scratch. We already had built one, and we were going to build the second one. And our builder calls us and said, "Look, man, there's no way that we can make this work for the contract that we have.
Right.
Things just skyrocketed." And then, long story short, he gave us the option. Look, I'll give you all your money back and 5% on top of it if you want. If you want to just bow out, or we're gonna have to increase. I don't remember, but it was still reasonable. Like it was still a good deal if we kept it, right? But we had already looked at we had been to Sarasota, Florida. I took my wife after we looked at the numbers. I said, okay, let's go visit. I took her on her birthday, March 6th, and that was it. She was hooked with the city, like with the place, the beaches.
Mm.
She's from a small island in
Yeah.
Brazil, so she really resonated with the place.
Mhm.
She's like, I
Mhm.
want to buy one here. I'm like, okay, let's do that. And then it just turned out that we decided to take our money back from that deal to put
Mm.
that towards this property in Sarasota. So that's how we actually bought our first true short-term rental. And then
Right.
slowly we kept transition into it, selling and transition into it. Um, but yeah, and then what we noticed though during that time, as you know, COVID was a big hit, right? And
Yeah.
and I remember people were like paying 100K overprice, 50. It was a common thing at the time.
It was a common. I remember that was the first time I learned about escalation clauses.
Yeah,
It's 'cause
yeah,
it's
yeah.
escalation clauses and no
Yep.
contingencies. So yep.
We'll escalate it to the sky, right? To the
Yep.
heavens. And so I was like, we didn't get any we did our offers didn't go through because I'm like, I'm not gonna do that. I came from
Yeah.
a long-term rental, very conservative underwriting. And then I had this think blank, what if we just bought a distressed property that nobody wants?
Mm.
What would happen? It's exactly what we did. So we actually bought a property that, it was distressed. Nobody wanted it. We bought it for 429 at the time.
429. Was it a 3 or 4 bedroom? How big was it?
It was a 4 bedroom, 2 bath, and we turned it into a 4 bedroom, 3 bath at the time.
Mm.
And then we
Okay.
renovated the pool. There was a pool, but needed some renovation. So we renovated the pool. And it was great. And then we launched on Airbnb, right?
Yep.
There was a story through that though, and that's why I built a contracting team and a design team. It was through that experience.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, I didn't know anybody. I was just calling people, hey, do you know how to renovate houses? Okay, okay, interviewing people, and I had a little bit of but not really done it remotely. right?
Yeah.
I've done it like in Minnesota, but it's a wild west, right? So, anyways, there's a story to that. That's how actually I decided to build a team, because I'm like, I'm in this for the long haul. I'm not, so I got to think long term, not short term. And I think that's why most people lose opportunity, is they're thinking like right here, right now, and they're not really delaying gratification. And it's tough. Don't get me wrong. Lots of headaches, I lost money a little bit here and there, but when I look back now, the best decision that I made. So, anyways, we went through that. 6 months later, like we launched it, and then we were we were ready to go and off to the races.
Mm.
First year, we did 150,
Wow.
155, and I still own this property today. And we were like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, no kidding.
You buy for 420. You do spend a little bit on the renovations and all that, but then, oh, not only that, first year we did 155, but 6 months later it appraised at 795.
Wow. That's awesome.
6 months later. So I was like, lazy, my wife, we're on to something. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we started really paying attention to the market. Then it comes 2022, 2021. Lots of investors go into the market, and that's when I said, look, we have to differentiate. We have to innovate our offering. You can't just do the same, because everybody was just buying a property that had a pool and listing it and make lots of money.
Yep.
I'm like, look, this ain't gonna last. I've had Amazon businesses in the past, and it's the same exactly model Amazon went through. Airbnb was going through, right? The new entrants make lots of money, and then it becomes competitive, and they don't make money anymore. And the people, the people who are experienced in renovating the product, they last longer, and they make more money, and they sell their businesses for a lot more money. So that was the name of the game, and I realized that. So we have to do something.
Right.
And it was tough, because at the time there wasn't comps in the area for what I wanted to do.
Yep.
So I spent a lot of time. Anyways, took cash out from that first property, bought another one, and then came later. We bought a second one, and then, okay, we're gonna buy a third one, but the third one needs to be really intentional, because the second one I bought it from a friend, and the third one I said it's gonna be really intentional. Now, we bought it. It was a 3-2. It didn't have a pool. It didn't have any amenities. Nothing. No pool. Nothing. And it was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, but it was in a good location, and it had like almost an acre of a lot. And my wife was like, "That's what we want." So we bought that property. Went through the same, renovation, and learned a lot too. That's how I got together with my business partner, my contractor today. And then we decided really building what we call signature properties, building with intentionality, really understanding the market. And there was no comp. So it's funny, because I have my deck, and I talk to investors like, we had no comp. So my wife and I are like, we got to pick a number that we're happy with, because there's nothing to compare. So we went back to long-term rental, like, hey, what is a good return, cash on cash, that we're really comfortable with? And I think we went a little higher than usually long-term rentals, they go. I think we picked like 9%, 8% cash on cash.
Yeah.
130 a year, 130,000 a year. We're happy with that. That's fine, right? Finished the property, we launched it. First year we did 219.
Wow.
And that's been consistently performing like that.
Now tell me about this property a little bit. So the signature property, I like that. I like that term, signature. That's kind of cool. So tell me about it. What makes it special?
Yeah. So at the time, it's the experience, right? So there are great amenities, and we've gotten better since then, because we've built a lot more than that. But what makes it really special, though, was like we added a pickleball court. We were the first ones to have a pickleball court in Sarasota-Bradenton at the time. So we had a pickleball court, mini putt putt, playground, nice pool, a nice pool with the putt around it, like a nice design.
Mm,
We added two more bedrooms and a bathroom. So now it was a 5-3 and
mm,
we host 16 people. Um, and yeah, so that's what we did. We added a game room. It's really nice. It's got pool table and all that stuff. And the game room was kind of common, right? But not the full offering. And I wanted to test. In fact, some people didn't even know what pickleball was, and like, we're gonna do it because
yeah,
I looked at the data outside of short-term rental, right?
yeah,
And it was the fastest. I'm crazy. Maybe I'm as crazy as you are when it comes to that. Like, we looked at Google Trends, Google AdWords. Okay, what's the spending on pickleball courts
yeah.
here? We looked at all these different data points, and pickleball, it was the fastest growing sport in America at the time. I don't know about right now. I still believe it is, but so we decided to do it. Just taking insights from outside of the industry and trying to bring
Mm,
that in, and that's part of the philosophy that I have is we use we do the common things that we know it's going to work, but we also experiment with something that we don't know, but we have some sort of a data outside of the industry to test it out,
right.
and then depending on how it performs and the guest experience and the guest feedback, we continue to implement that. That's kind of my
I,
philosophy.
I, I mean, I think that, it ties great into the topic of innovation. You know what I mean? Like when you're an innovator, you're one of the first people to try something and introduce something into a marketplace. And there aren't a lot of comparable properties who are doing the same, hence would make you an innovator, right?
Yeah, right.
So like there's inherent risk to it, but with you mentioned a term like experience, the research, the data, like the two things that mitigate risk are, knowledge or research essentially, data and experience. I mean, you put those things together, and although you're the first to try something or do something in a marketplace and be an innovator, it pays off because of, the other things you brought to the table. So I think that's a really good point, especially for those of you who are the listeners who are, in a market where there's not a lot of people with certain types of amenities. If you're trying to add something, and you're like, well, I think this would be a good idea for my guest avatar, but I don't really know, So I think that that's where the biggest payoffs can be, the biggest rewards, or it's like no one else is doing it. I'm going to take the time to figure it out, and if you figure it out, that's where the payoff is. So
Exactly. That's exactly how we do it. Yep. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so the pickleball courts. Now let's kind of dive into more of the like let's fast forward to today. Okay. So today there are pickleball courts going all over Bradenton and Sarasota. Like
Yeah.
it's almost become like a common amenity, not
Yeah.
just in that area, but in a lot of different markets too. So, but you're still doubling down in that market and doing projects there. So, if you could share, some of the ideas are just like how do you approach, first off, how do you approach that market in the competition today? Given your success there and your experience there.
Yeah. So first of all, I know the market well, right? I've been in it for 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
So I know well. I know the big players. And from our perspective now, we we have a baseline, right,
Mhm.
of what needs to happen in order to succeed. So our baseline, it really is, like you said, there's the common things, the pickleball court. But I'll tell you what, though, there's a misconception that I'm gonna add a pickleball court and I'm gonna make a lot of money. Okay,
Mm.
and I wanna bring that back here because that is not true. I know owners who simply added a pickleball court and they're not doing well or not as they expected to do. Okay, in that market. So, uh, thinking that you're gonna add a amenity and make lots of money, to me, it's illusion. That's not how I think about it. Okay, I'm coming from an experience, a totality as a whole,
Mm.
not as a a one thing that's gonna. It's like playing in the lottery. Like I'm gonna hope that the thing's gonna make me lots of money, and that's not my approach. That's not how we approach it. My approach is more like, how can we provide a great place for guests, attract them, right, and maintain that consistency in every single property. Now, the experimentation that I mentioned plays hugely into that role, right? For example, again, we were the first ones to create the nice bunk beds, right? The bunk beds with the slide in a unique artwork. So I hired an artist. She painted the entire walls of the house. We're not using wallpaper, right? Just so creating that uniqueness. One of the things that I noticed is like there are the companies making the pickleball courts with all the amenities, but when you look at a pattern, they all look alike.
Yes.
They don't have this
Thank
like
you.
differentiation. Like oh I know, and that's what we're trying
It
to build. Is they're
it's
trying
a
to build.
copy paste
Yeah,
model.
yeah,
It's a yeah, I call it copy pasta. Like it's a boom boom factory, like I called it the Fab 5 amenities, game room,
yeah,
wall, hot
yeah,
tub, pool, what's it, movie theater, whatever. Like they just shoot or mini putt putt, boom boom, and the wallpaper designs are relatively the same. Like,
yeah,
yeah, I know what you're talking about. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so it, and I'll tell you too, like I'm gonna be honest, it's not easy to make unique design every time, but that's what we're aiming for. Is to create a brand,
Yep.
right? We're not trying to be like, hey, this is just another property with the same amenities, but what is the element of differentiation that we can add on to the experience that makes it unique and grow retention, right? Although
Right.
retention is, but so that's what we're trying to accomplish. So that's how we tackle it. Is like I understand the market, I understand the competitors, and I'm watching them on a weekly basis.
Mhm.
Um, but what is the element that is us, right? So when you look at one of our properties, that it's. I mean, if you know like me and us, you'll know that it's not. It's Juliano's property. That's how people refer to it, right? Because we're trying to create that brand. We're trying to create that element of uniqueness, even though it's a sea of the same, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
That's,
now now there's a caveat to that, right? Because I think most of us and you should is that we want to try to put a dollar in everything that we spend, and I want to challenge people to think a little bit differently too, because there's two ways that we tackle this, right? One is when I'm talking to investors, we are working with investors and buying and building. Is there's two ways to look at this investment. One is appreciation on the house itself. That's one focus, and the other one is cash flow. Is
mm,
as much cash flow as we can. Now, people in the long term rental they used to call like perfect burrs. What like home run burrs when you kind of like refi, take all your money out, and I'll challenge you like you don't have to take all your money out. I mean, it's great if you do, but think about these two components, which is increasing your property value, but also increasing cash flow. And how can you make those two work well together? So that's our philosophy. And again, not everything that you're gonna do, you're gonna get your money back right away because that's
right.
not the game, right? Like appraisers will not look at like you. You've got a fire pit here. Now I'm gonna increase $20,000. That's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
So you have to play those both games and really understand it.
Yeah. No, I like that. Okay. So I actually, this popped in my head while you were talking. I think you posted this, and correct me if I'm wrong. If you didn't, we can move on from it. But didn't somebody copy one of your designs?
Yeah, like to the T, like the
To
book
the
bag.
T. Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm all for like creating bunk beds, but like don't just copy exactly the same thing.
Well, and you're not the only one that's happened to.
No, I
There's
know.
been some
Yeah.
other designers where people have literally copied, I mean, even the throw blankets and the pillows and everything to a T, they copied their design. And so with that going on, I mean, people are obviously looking at your properties, you're an innovator, you're setting kind of the bar and they're seeing and you're finding success, those numbers show up in AirDNA, STR insights. How do you go about How do you stay ahead of it? How do you like when it happens, it's frustrating, but like how do you go like, okay, we're gonna be adding these things or like it's chess, not checkers, baby. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a great question, Kenny. And there's a couple ways to go about it, but it comes down to as well like what I want to pour my energy into,
Yeah.
right? So there's a couple ways to go about it. Like our designs, we work with an architect, and I can share some of that. But like we architect the bunk beds. Like we have drawings, we go through iteration every week. Every week my design team and I we meet every week, right? So that design, that drawing can be copyrighted, and we are starting to do that. Does that protect you 100%? No, it is a layer of protection, right? The other thing that we are more focused on is just continue to create a better product. Again, that comes back to like my energy. I've talked to my attorney about this copycat, and we went, we bounced around ideas. There's a copyright infringement, sure, but ultimately, how much do I want to go down that rabbit hole, right? Like,
Yeah.
pour my energy into. So I've chosen to just focus on pouring my energy into creating new and amazing things. Although we have a layer of protection, but I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going to let the experts do that. I'm more concerned about how can we differentiate? How can we make the best experience possible for our guests? That's been my focus. So one way to protect it, to continue to innovate, because here's the thing, and I come from a startup world too. Like here's the thing, we all get like concerned about competition and all that, but most people will not put in the work that you do. Most
Hmm.
people will not be as detailed, as thoughtful as you are. In fact, this person has not been like, look at the photos in the listing, like it's clearly like how they view the world. It's very different
Right.
than I how I do it. So so I think the best way also to keep ahead is to continue to innovate and continue to provide value to the market and to your guests. That's how I have been approaching it.
Yeah, I really like that idea. So with that in mind, I gotta ask, just for our listeners, what sort of, if you could share anything, any general ideas or specifics you want to get, what sort of ways do you innovate or try to stay ahead of the competition?
Yeah. So one way that I do it is looking outside of the market that I'm in,
Hmm.
and even different countries, right?
That's
So
that's interesting. Yeah.
yeah, like we're gonna go overseas in a month, and I've been engaging with some designers and some architects from other countries, South America, just to really understand. In fact, this so we just bought a property back in end of August, and it's gonna be it's a big property that we're gonna host close to 30 people, 28 to 30. We're still deciding, but we're making it like this amazing property, and we're actually using a lot of the innovation, a lot of the themes from actually South America. In fact, the
Mhm.
theme is coming from South. It's a blend from South America, and then we're gonna blend it into Anna Maria Island to have that pop. So one way is to really look at outside of where you're at, because what happens is uh sometimes we're so focused on here right now and just copying everybody else that we forget that, hey, there's something out here that I can learn from and get inspiration from and apply back into our properties that can really work or not, but it's like experimentation, right? Again, the other thing that I do is look at qualitative and quantitative data, not just for short-term rentals.
Mm.
Okay, looking at like hotels. Okay, I look at that stuff. I pay attention when I said a hotel. I'm looking at all the details, right? And it's funny because hotels that they know it, like they have the experience. So like they have a brand, right? The hotel, so
Yeah.
they are innovating. And again, guys, I want to say something to like innovation is not just like I'm gonna create a new flying car, right?
Yeah.
Innovation is just it's not the new electric. It's not it. You can innovate a process. You can innovate something within your property. You just made it better. You innovated something that already existed. That's also worthwhile innovation. So we're looking at all these different angles, right? Like one innovation that we're doing is where the theme goes throughout the entire property, including the pickleball court, right?
Mm.
Including the splash pad,
That's pretty cool.
including the pool, including the gazebos. How can we give continuity to that experience inside and out, right? That's how we're trying to innovate on this new property as well. I mean, it's challenging, but it's a lot of fun too.
Yeah. No, that definitely sounds like a lot of fun. Man, that's I really like that point. And everyone listening, so Giuliano, I didn't mention this, but like with the title and everything, this is part two. So I do a part one episode where it's just me talking about the subject, and I give my 2 cents. And then I bring on the guest for the part two. And you're like hitting on things that I talked about, like looking at hotels and seeing what they're doing, like how they kind of they have it figured out. And one of the reasons why one of the things I mentioned was that they have so many, a lot of these big brands, they have hundreds or maybe even thousands around the country, around the world, and they can get so much data when they test something to see, and then they can take action. And it's kind of like, I call it modeling the masters. They've figured it out. Let's see what they're doing. We get inspiration from those ideas and can bring it into the STR space. So I'm just sitting there smiling with some of the stuff you're saying because I'm like, yeah, that's exact. I 100% agree with all that. So yeah, sometimes people you're hearing it twice, and we didn't plan that out. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah, totally.
but, that's really cool. Yeah, man. What other thoughts do you have? So, what? How does somebody? Here's a good question for you. If I'm new to investing in short term rentals and I'm wanting to invest in a market like a Bradenton or a competitive market, I should say, doesn't have to be Bradenton. How do I go about thinking as an innovator for someone new? Like, what recommendations do you have for that new person?
New, like no experience or new in the market.
Let's say new experience. Like I'm buying my first property in that market. How am I, it's a competitive market. A lot of markets are competitive, especially the popular ones. How do I separate or how do I be, um, how do I figure out how to be the top dog, the top innovator, the top person in that market?
Man, that's a great question. So
Putting you on the spot.
you did, but you
Yeah,
know what?
and that was not a softball one. I felt like I was like, you know what? I'm gonna ask this one. So go ahead.
No, man, not like you're a smart guy. Like this is a great question, and it's actually so I I help new investors learn the process, learn the things. I set up all the things for them. One of the things that I tell them is in order for you to be the top or be amongst the top is you need to be able to focus on certain things when you're starting off.
Mm,
Because think about this. When you started, like when I was starting, there's lots of things, right? You talk about design, well, acquisition. Let's talk about acquisition. There's all sorts of things just acquiring the property, and
right.
then design, staging, and then the operations. In fact, I created a formula. I coined this formula called E.R.O, which stands for acquisition, experience, revenue, and operations. You've got to get all those four things right. So for a newcomer is you want to get those four things right: acquisition, experience, revenue, and operations. Now you don't have to get them perfect. It's not what we're
Right.
saying. But you do need to get them both, all four leveled and consistent, and then you will do well, right? So, for example, in the acquisition, you want to acquire a property that it's in a good location, it's got the amenities that you need, it's got the space that you need. You create a criteria, right? And when it comes to experience, for especially for new investors, like it, the experience is probably where you can actually add your own spice, if you will, right?
Yeah.
And do research. So make sure you got the experience correct and done. And there's a lot of resources out there. And then once you do that, also start to dipping your toes into revenue management. And I kind of put revenue management like marketing, Airbnb, understanding the platforms first. So then you can go off and do your direct bookings if you want, but understanding the platforms first and making it work. And then operations is having a great team that's going to operate it, right? Most people think, hey, I'm going to buy this amazing property, I'm going to do well. I'm like, I don't know. I know people that like who have amazing properties are not doing well. It's
Yeah.
because they didn't get these four things right or aligned. So what I would say for someone new is make sure you get the right property. You can fix about, like, you can't move a property
Yeah.
to like, make sure you get the right property. Make sure you nail the experience. And if you don't have the ton of experience with guest experience, look around, look at the competitors, and maybe get help. But get that baseline at least implemented. Get it there. Whatever the minimum is that your competitor is doing, do that. And then learn how the platforms work, Airbnb pricing, all that. Start dipping your toes or hire revenue management initially. I'm all into like initially because it's about focus, but you do have to get it right because you have to get it right.
Yeah.
Hire a revenue management initially. Eventually, because you wanna understand that too, but initially you hire and then the operations. Make sure your team is solid. You understand the pros and cons of that. One opportunity, Kenny, that I saw in Sarasota-Bradenton at the time was uh, because it was COVID and people were getting bookings left and right. I was talking to these ladies and these owners, and in fact, like the one that helped me buy, and they're like, no, we're not gonna do this for guests. We're not gonna allow early check in. We're not gonna allow this. I'm like, that is the worst experience ever. Like what like so I saw that as an opportunity. So you know what I did? So that's partly why like we did well the first year is I actually advertised it like free early check-in.
Oh, wow.
So I worked with my cleaner and I said, how can we make that work? I don't know. You figure out, tell me how we can make that work. So we created a strategy around free early check-in. And then after certain hours they would have to pay, but I got a lot of bookings just making a title like free early check-in.
That's not a bad
Uh,
idea.
because yeah, because people other people like were not willing to do it because the cleaners didn't want to do it. And we're like, hey, let's figure it out. And that's why I bring most people in house. That's another topic, but I bring most people in house as opposed to buying experienced, for example, cleaners. So I kind of train everyone from the ground up based on our processes. But
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I think that's worth noting too here is, when we're innovating, we're trying to solve a problem, right? We're solving
yeah,
bottlenecks, and like for example, you mentioned the early check-in. Like we get early check-in requests all the time, and I tell people it depends. I'm like, well, when my cleaners say it's clean, then you can check in, but being able to say it like from the get go, you can check in early, that makes a huge difference for folks, and there's a lot of different examples like that on how can we improve the guest experience and then market that improvement to attract more bookings at our place. That's innovation,
yeah,
solving current bottlenecks that can help separate us that other people aren't willing to do. I call it a moat, other people, insulation or protection or whatever, but ultimately it is about figuring out the little things that the 95% aren't willing to figure out. So, yeah.
exactly.
I
That's
like
that's 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 innovation right there.
Yep.
You're totally right. So like, because I think most of us think, oh, we're gonna develop this floating house. You don't have to. Renovate your process.
Yeah.
Renovate, your something minimal for gas that makes a difference. Yeah, so that's stuff that we're looking at all the time too. Like especially right now. Right now the market seems a little weird. Even though the amazing properties they're gonna do well. The good
Right.
properties are gonna do well. But if you're in that 50th or below percentile, okay, look at these little things that can drive more bookings. And sometimes you don't need to low prices. Sometimes you just offer a free early, figure out with your cleaner, offer a free early check-in, or whatever the case is. That most people aren't doing, right? And
Right.
that's the craziest thing. Like, yeah, so that in and of itself is innovation. It's a cleaning process, but that is innovation, right? We figured out how to clean the items in a different way.
Yeah,
Win-win.
100%. No, I love that, man. Well, hey, as we're kind of like wrapping up this episode, this has been a great episode, by the way. I appreciate you joining and being on the show here
No, thank
and
you, man.
sharing all these insights. So if someone's interested in learning more about potentially partnering with you or learning more about your services that you offer, your coaching and mentoring, or partnering on deals, I know you do some partnering as well. What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so Instagram, Facebook and Instagram is probably the easiest. And it's Instagram.com. My handle is Juliano, my middle name, Moreira, which is not here. I should have done that. M Moreira, Moreira. Or I have a newsletter, and the newsletter is where I can things really, really tight, really, really personal. I'm sharing numbers. I'm sharing like how we started, my wife and I started, the mistakes that we've made, the mistakes with contractors. There's a lot of stuff that we've learned throughout the years. We're also sharing some deals that we're coming across. In case people want to invest with us. So the newsletter is behindeverystay.com. It's a very simple form. Just sign up for that, and then you'll hear from me once a month. I am going to write twice a month because there's a lot of stuff that happens in 30 days. I was
It's
writing
true.
it, and I'm like, man,
It
it's hard
goes
to
by
put
like
everything.
that, but yeah, you're right. There's a lot of stuff that happens. So
So
yeah.
I might share twice a month. But that's where I've been really pouring a lot of content and trying to just add value to people, because like people ask me things all the time how to do this, but I can't serve anyone. So I figured the newsletter would be a great way to really impact people's life, which is my mission is to impact my team actually. Make sure they're growing with me. It's one of the things that I tell them all the time. We're gonna grow together,
Mm,
but I also want to impact the people that we serve, which are our guests and our investors. So
yeah, I love that. I love that a lot. Well, thank you so much. Last question for you, man. Before we end it, what name of the podcast is Cash Flow Positive? Any sort of recommendations that you have that people can cash flow positive with their short term rentals? Can be anything that we've talked about already, or anything new we haven't talked about.
you and your hard questions, huh? Yeah, no, I'll go back to the foundations in cash flowing positive is if you can, not everyone can, but if you can, look for properties like when people are zagging, you zag, right? So, and I think that applies to everything that we do. So when you see most people buying a certain type of property or buying turnkey, in my case, I kind of zagged to, okay, how can I buy distressed property and make it work? Right.
Mm,
And there's lots of upsides on that. I still truly believe that it is a great strategy today.
yep.
Um, so if you can, not everyone can, right? Because it's hard remotely, and that's also partly why we built the team to help other clients. Because if you're
Right.
remote, you can hire. We'll do everything for you, and we're trustworthy. My team is great. But if you can do that, I'd recommend doing that. And in addition to that is understand the fundamentals
Mm,
of short-term investing, because I think that's gonna last. It's a lasting thing that once you learn, you can apply it to any market, anytime, anywhere. So stick to the fundamentals. I think we sometimes we get excited about the shiny objects, and
Yep.
they've been guilty, right? But we're staying true to what we're good at, to the core, and to the fundamentals of what we do.
I love it. I love it a lot. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this guy knows what he's talking about. So I hope everyone paid attention. I definitely enjoyed this episode. Thank you for being on here. That I learned this. It was just, man, it was a good one. So thanks so much. I appreciate you taking the hard questions too. So I
No,
figured I'm
thank
like,
you. Yeah.
hey, this guy knows what he's talking about. Let's dive deeper. Let's dig deeper and get some information. And that's where I think people can really walk away with some action items on this episode, which is what the whole point of the show is about. So thank you so much for being on the show today.
No, thank you, Kenny. I mean, you're a guy who everyone's and most of us and I myself we learned a lot from. You're also a data guy. You founded STR Insights. So we appreciate what you do. I've learned a ton from you, just in not only in conferences but listening to you. I remember I think it was the first conference or second. I don't remember the WealthCon, and you were talking about the best amenities under $1,000, and
Okay. Yeah.
I can't forget that workshop. It was a workshop, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was amazing. I think that stuff is really true. So I thank you for your contribution to the industry.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, cool, man. And thank you everybody for listening to this episode. And if you enjoyed this episode, it'd mean the world to me if you could go and leave a review on iTunes or Spotify. Without further ado, thanks everybody for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode of Cashflow Positive.